Good morning, guys. Andrew here with A-Team Adventures. We're back on the water again. It's been a long winter, but finally we have open water. Excited to take you along and go fishing. The pattern it's absolutely pre-spawn here, and it was cold last night. Water temperature is up in some ways, but it probably dropped actually. It had probably been up to almost 60 degrees. It's now down to 54. So we had, some cold nights here that's been pushing it back down. So we'll see if we can figure something out and put things together. All right, let's get to it. Let's get fishing. First fish of the day, guys. It's a smallmouth. A little bigger fish than I thought. All right, guys, that's a little better fish. That's a real nice fish. Let's put it back. All right, and then you've heard of me talk this before, but that is the re-range jerkbait, Jackal re-range. Boy, I love that bait. All right, let's see what we can do. Now, just so you know what we were doing there is a long point that comes out, and you can kind of see probably those two pine trees, kind of three, but two white pines at the tip of that point there, and there's a long underwater point that comes out, and we were just casting over the point, and that's where the fish took it. We weren't paralleling it, we were going across it, which I try both, but I've read and I've heard. Oh, that was the bottom. No fish. I got a little too excited there. But I've read and I've heard that oftentimes that's a better way to start, by going over it, because most of the time these fish are looking to ambush, the bass are looking to ambush, bait fish, and typically what happens is they're swimming along and they'll eventually follow that point and cross over it, right, kind of at the point. And so sometimes I've heard that it's better to go over the point to start with, especially at the end, and that's what we were doing. And then from there, I might try some of the top of the point, working my way in, but I'm going to probably then start paralleling the point. Second fish on. Doesn't feel as big. It's not. Oh, it's definitely not. But look at that. It's a yellow perch, and it is a massive yellow perch. This is, for a yellow perch, that's a big one. Look at that fat, probably full of eggs, fat belly. We're going to test out the live wells. Let's see what else is in here. Something just hit it. I missed it. Something just hit it while it was sitting there on the pause. There we go. Better than that yellow perch, or maybe it's foul hooked. I don't know. Feels better. It's foul hooked. But it is better than that yellow perch, but not by a lot. Okay, there we go. It's a largemouth. Just slapping at it. Now that was a lot more sluggish. That's the importance of having very sharp hooks. We would not have caught that fish if we didn't have super sharp hooks. These ones I've swapped out for the, there we go, getting okay fish, skinny. And I've swapped these ones out for the Aaron Martin's finesse treble hooks. And they are sharp, sharp, sharp. Ooh, ouch. Okay, that one did go in my thumb. Ouch. Okay. That's unfortunate. Guess we get to remove a hook. Ouch. The trick is now doing this without getting another barb in me. Okay. That's really in there, guys. Look at that. Ouch. Let's see here. Let's see about getting this sucker out. So, here's what we've done so far. I'm sure this is going to feel great, but here's what we've done. We've got a piece of braid, and we've looped it around. We want to use braid so you don't have any stretch. We've looped it around. Now there's a barb in there, so you want to press down and try to pop it out. So that's what we're going to try to do. Just like that. Nothing to it. All right, now if you're doing this for a friend, pro tip, count to 3, but pull it out on number 2. So tell them we're going to count to 3 and pull it out. 1, 2, pop, and then 3 is nothing. So that's a pro tip for you. I can't do that to myself though. That's the only trouble, because I know it's coming. All right, well, let's get this hook back on there since we know it's nice and sharp, and see if we can catch some more fish.
It's that warm already.
Yeah, isn't that something? We had just those couple of really warm days in a row.
54, I tell you what, jump in 6 feet of water and tell me what your feet are.
Exactly, it's going to be totally different.
Great, it should be good smallmouth fish in another week or 2.
Yeah, that would be nice.
More weather.
Yeah. Alright. Whew. Almost lost that one. Alright. Alright, there we go. Well, little one, but hey, we'll take it.
Pickerel should be doing good. Not that I want to catch them things.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we just caught a fish while having a conversation with someone. That's always good. And so I sat down. I haven't put that hook back on. I need to retie the bait and put that hook that was in my thumb back on. But I saw something come up to the surface here, so that's why I picked up the other jerkbait we had and just started throwing that. And we caught one. I would suspect there's more. I don't know that we'll catch them, but we will take a pause and, you know, put that back on. All right, we're back in business. We got that treble that was in my thumb back on the bait, and now we've made some improvements to this bait. It is now in the bleeding bait series. There is blood all over it, but hopefully we catch more fish from it. I'm sure it'll make a difference. The most annoying thing about this stupid hook thing is my thumb keeps bleeding. I'm getting blood on my reel and my rod and my clothes. It's kind of annoying. Oh well, I don't recommend it. There we go. Yeah, I wouldn't say that bleeding bait series is working for us. We kind of downsized, you know. So. That being said, all kidding aside, it's important to make repeated casts. We've gone right back to where we caught that fish, you know, right after I put the right before I put the hook in my thumb. But we went right back to the spot. We had kind of drifted a little bit, and obviously there are more fish here. I don't know how many, but there are more fish. So it's important to make repeated casts, and this is a long point, and it goes into a pinch point, into a spawning area. You know, there's kind of another bay in the back here. And it is the perfect staging spot right here as they come in off the deep Maine lake and all the way back into this area, and it's perfect for them to feed up, because if bait fish come in here, they have to do the same thing, and they're forced into a very small area. So the bass, you know, one, the bass want to move back to the spawning areas, but two, it's a perfect staging area. You know, well, that's more the first point. So one, it's moving back into a spawning area, so it's a perfect staging area, but two, the bait fish are going to move through here as well, and it's a perfect ambush spot. That's the word I was looking for. That feels like a little better fish. Nope, not really. Alright, teeny guy. We'll take all the fish we can get, big or small. I'd rather big ones, but I like catching fish. Seem to be catching a lot of very small fish. Like maybe the bigger fish are back down a little farther, I don't know. Decent fish, not a giant, but a decent fish. All right. Okay. Had that. All three treble hooks are in his mouth. He absolutely wanted that one. That's a good sign. Alright, we're getting somewhere. So, just to give you kind of, you know, why we're fishing right where we're fishing. We were fishing on that side, next down, and we caught a bunch of fish on that side, where I would think the fish are coming from that side of the lake, coming around. And there's a whole bunch more lake this way, so we're fishing this side of it. But I also noticed that there's kind of an underwater island or hump right kind of in between these two. So you've got one side that goes down, one side, another side that goes down, and there's kind of a hump right in the middle. So, and there's deeper water right in between it. And it seems like the fish we're catching on this side are in between these, you know, the underwater sort of hump and the edge here. And I half wonder if they would almost push bait fish into this. It's kind of a shallow pocket right here, and I half wonder if they would push bait fish in there and feed on those. So we caught two in this little area, and we'll see if we can catch any more. We'll make a few more casts. Go. Definitely more in here. Put the power poles down. Just keep making casts. That re-range was running a little too deep, so I grabbed a shallower running jerkbait and hooked onto another one. And Oh, it's a pickerel. Yeah. But sometimes that's also what it takes. Boy, he wanted that too. It's sideways in his mouth. Look at that. Came out a little, but it was completely sideways. But going back to what I was just saying, sometimes if you've caught a few fish with one bait, sometimes you need to swap to another, and sometimes that's as simple as swapping from one jerk bait to just a different jerk bait, a different look, a little different sound, a little different action. Sometimes it's as drastic as swapping to a whole nother, going to maybe a Nico rig or something just totally different. It's often worth a shot if you've caught a fish or two trying something else or approaching it from another angle. Just letting the fish see something a little different. Not a big one, but again, we swapped up baits. We've gotten a couple bites. This is the first one we've landed with. This is with a lipless crank. It's the Strike King, tungsten. It's the 2-tap. It's a red-eye shad, but it is the 2-tap version in 1/2 ounce. But just picked up one more, just winding around, and he absolutely stopped it. He just got it. First I thought it was bottom. It just totally stopped it. But we'll wind it around a little bit more and see what we can find. But again, we're right in the same area, and we've hardly moved. But just trying a few different baits. We did pick up a Nico rig. Not a thing on that, but we did pick up one more on the lipless crankbait. All right, guys. Here we go. We picked up a chatterbait fish. Not a giant, but thrilled to have him. I've been trying to get a flipping bite, and we got one bite, but we didn't catch it. I have no idea how good or not good it was. And then as we're moving from spot to spot, we picked up the chatterbait and have been winding that around. Getting a phone call, but we're going to keep after it. There we go. That's a better fish. All right. All right. We have had the hardest time getting a flipping bite. I had a couple more bites and I had a little fish on and lost it halfway to the boat, but it wasn't a big fish. We caught a couple pickerel on the chatterbait, and that was the first decent bass on the chatterbait. Well, we had one a while back, and that was okay. But this one, first one in quite a while, I guess you could say. And what I had determined was I kind of wanted to hit these bushes, but I didn't want to take so long flipping a bait and just really slowly, methodically hitting every single one. So I picked up a moving bait and just started the best I could, paralleling, so if I don't know if you can really see, but over here there's the way the shoreline goes, it comes out and then cuts back in. Well, I'm in a perfect line to make a cast down that, that point basically. And that's what I did, and that's when that fish bit, as I was just as close as I could be paralleling the shoreline, figuring two things. One, the water is warmer here. We've had a little breeze blowing in, and so the warm water has been piling up in the back of this pocket. And then two, any little stick up, anything that's coming out of the water holds the heat, better, and the heat transfers into that immediate area around that little stick up or cover right along the shoreline. So I was just paralleling that because it's probably a hair warmer than even out here, and that's when the fish bit. Now if I got several bites, that's the first one, but if I did get several bites, I would slow down and pitch to every single key little spot. But if I don't, I'm just going to keep moving and then head out and fish something else. But we'll make a few more casts. Felt like a good bite too. I don't know why. Look, it's sharp. I'll touch it up, but feels good. That was a really good feeling bite too. It was almost like a jig bite. Boom. It felt really good. Ooh, we got a beaver. I don't know if you can see it or not.
In addition, the ability of the buyer to recover under the indemnity is limited by a deductible or threshold amount. This deductible or threshold applies across all claims in the aggregate. A deductible is an initial amount of loss the buyer cannot recover. It operates much like a deductible under insurance policies.
I don't
If the
think
deductible is $1,000 and the buyer suffers indemnifiable losses equal to $2 million, then the buyer can only recover $2 million. Simple division.
Alright, another chatterbait fish. Another good one, too. Right. Something just to pay attention to. This fish is pretty green. It's not super white. So this fish seems to have been in shallow water for a little while. Just something to pay attention to get a gauge. Did these fish just move up, or have they been up for a little while? Spawn up on my glasses. If they've been up here for a while and they're kind of dark green and don't look all bleached out and, you know, very pale, it just means, in my mind, there probably are going to be more up here. If they're very, very white and it looks like they just moved up, there might be more, but there also might be more off wherever the break is. And there still might be more off the break, you know, either way, but I would just expect, if they're dark green and look like they've been up here for a while, I would expect to find more in the shallow side than on the deep side. This is a good one. Another chatterbait jackhammer fish. He had that all the way down, and it's a good thing too, because I was fishing it, and I was fishing it over a stump. This area has some stumps in it, and you can see some of them are sticking out of the water, some of them are just below the surface, and sometimes you can see them, sometimes you just feel that you've bumped them. But that one, I knew I was swimming it over a stump, and I thought for sure I hit the stump. It just stopped. And I thought, well, bummer, I hit a stump. So I kind of let up on it gently and then pulled back down, and then I felt it swimming a little bit. I'm like, it's not a stump. But anyway, let's keep after it. All right, another chatterbait fish. So after we caught some on a chatterbait, I am now going back through. It's warmed up. Let that one go. It's warmed up a little bit, and so this area that I was flipping, some of these little brush clumps, I am now going through with a chatterbait and just seeing if we pick up anything. You know, since it's warmed up, I'm expecting that fish are moving up more shallow as the day progresses. We don't have too much more time, but still just figured it would be worth exploring, and so far it's paid off, at least in one fish. I had actually run that chatterbait by the brush a little bit to the left and saw a wake, you know, a fish waking towards it. It didn't hit it, but so I cast it a little closer, and that time it got it. So hey, you know, pay attention, use your eyes as well. In a case like that, that fish was waking, and we just kept it going, and a couple short pops, but it didn't take it, and then we cast it a little bit closer, and we got it the second time. What was that, huh? big one, but still it's a fish. That is fantastic. Whatever there is, there's a whole bunch of them stacked into that corner right there. The sun's beating down on it. It's got deep water access, a channel right through here. I'd say it's a bunch of small bass. It's crazy. That's kind of neat. Must be moving up. I'm guessing they're just following this channel in here. They're just stacked up, probably a bunch this size, but I don't know, you'd like to think there'd be a big one somewhere in there, or close behind. It's amazing how timing is so important. We came through here just a couple hours earlier, and you know, there were a few fish in here, but it wasn't like this. And now they're all just moving right up. Tell you what makes me really grateful for power poles. I was able to set them down, and the wind would just push us right in here. And we'd be on the trolling motor. You couldn't keep catching these fish. Not a giant, but it's a little better than the other ones. Oh, it's a pretty good fish, actually. And I would guess, I cast it pretty close to that tree. I would guess this one came out of the tree to get this bait. Fantastic. Right out of that tree. I'm trying to be careful because the limbs come out quite a ways, so I'd rather not catch this bait in the tree and ruin it. Still, you gotta get close to it. All right. Lots of fun. Oh my goodness. I went to move it and there was nothing there. I knew a fish grabbed it and ran. Oh, pickle. What's he doing in there? Not where he's supposed to be. This is ridiculous. It's way too much fun. to a different jerkbait. We caught another fish. This one's halfway decent, not a giant, but a little better than some of the others. Just pays to be thorough. What a pretty fish. Framed, and I think there's a footer, but it's framed and then it's pressure treated plywood. That's how they did the foundation.
There's just 2x6s underneath that plywood. What, 2x4s under that plywood?
Something like that.
Oh, shit. Look at that. That seems like such a hack job.
No, that's, we consulted a few builders, and we consulted a few builders actually, and they said, yeah, that was common for that time period, but it also just does look weird. All right, guys, we are back in the garage. Just a quick kind of recap of the day. We started out on a Maine lake point that quickly necked down into a pinch point that went all the way back into a pocket, basically a large pocket of bay, and all the way at the end there is where I'd expect a large population of fish to spawn. So we started out on the Maine lake point that was really also a pinch point all in the same time, which is a great place to start, and we caught fish right off from the beginning. It was a lot of fun. The major players, that Jackal re-range jerkbait, that is the 110 size, and man, I just catch so many fish with that. That was a great bait today. And then we were using the Lucky Craft. This is the flash pointer, and it's the smallest of the series. I want to say that's a 100, but don't quote me on that, but it's the smallest one. And I use all kinds of different jerkbaits, but these two today I happen to have tied on. I pretty much always have the re-range tied on, and then this one I had tied on specifically to target shallower water. It's got a smaller bill, it's the smaller size, so it targets shallower water, and it looks totally different in the water. So sometimes when you're fishing and you catch a bunch of fish on one thing, you can swap to a different bait and catch some more. And we covered that a little bit today. And it worked multiple times. We'd use one bait and we'd catch as many as we could, or kind of as many as we could, and then we'd swap to another bait and we'd catch another one. Sometimes the biggest one, or sometimes just more of the same size, but just something to pay attention to. And sometimes it really is that subtle. One jerkbait to another jerkbait, and it just makes a difference. The way it moves, the depth range, the sound. Whatever it is, and sometimes it can be a lot more drastic. You can move to just something totally different and catch fish on that. Typically more finessey, but sometimes it's just totally different. And so those two were just great baits. And then that chatterbait, man, we caught so many fish on that, and I didn't even show you all the fish that we caught. We just caught so many fish on that chatterbait, and that is the jackhammer chatterbait. It was semi-clear water, so I was using a natural color, and that's the 3/8 ounce bait. I had a 1/2 ounce on the deck, but the fish were not that deep. Most of the fish seem to be in maybe that 3 or 4 feet, even 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet max water depth that I was fishing the chatterbait in. So I didn't need a heavier one, but I was prepared to go deeper if I had to with a heavier chatterbait, but I didn't need to. Let's see, covering. We started on that point and we fished that quite a bit. We caught fish, and then we moved all the way back to a pocket, and we caught fish on the transition line again, but they were not all the way back in the pocket. So then we moved back out and we caught some more fish on secondary points, and then we swapped it up completely and went to a whole nother section of the lake. And it again is kind of a transition place, and I was trying so hard to get a flipping bite, could not make that happen today. And it's an odd thing. You'd think if they're going to chase down a bait, and you'd see them. I mean, I saw them. I mean, chasing down a bait. And you'd think if they're willing to chase down a bait, of course they'd be willing to pick up a slow moving bait just right in front of them, but that was not the case. So just keep an open mind, keep trying things. If they're not, you know, they're not going to chase a bait, maybe they'll go for a slow moving bait, but if they're not getting a slow moving bait, it doesn't mean there isn't a bite there. They would chase down that chatterbait. So keep a little bit of an open mind and try things. So we tried and tried and tried, and it just seemed like the fish weren't in there yet, and they would not go for a slow bait. So we moved to another part. It was again a transition spot where there was a break line, and the fish were just up on the break, and there were submerged stumps, and we were catching fish off those submerged stumps with a chatterbait, just winding it around, and you couldn't tell exactly where all the stumps were, but you just kind of kept winding around. You'd bump it off one, and then sure enough, fish would take it, or you'd be winding it along and one would take it, and you'd find out later there was a stump there. So there was a reason they were there, and it was the break line, but they were not all the way back in the pocket. We tried again, even later in the day, and they weren't all the way back in the pocket. They were out right on that transition line, or just up a little ways. And then we went back to where we were trying to get a flipping bite, and the fish were moving in like crazy. Still couldn't make anything happen pitching and flipping, but they were chasing down the jerkbait and the chatterbait, and boy, we caught some fish. A lot of small. We found a pocket, where they were all just piling into, and mostly small fish. We did catch a few good fish. But they were not there earlier. We had tried that very same spot, and the fish just were not there. So it's also interesting, just keep in mind, it can be a timing thing. That was a matter of probably an hour and a half or 2 hours, and it made that big a difference from hardly any fish in there to just piles of fish in there. So again, pay attention to those small things. The sun came out, it warmed up, and the fish were just moving in. So timing is important, and I'm trying to think if we learned any other sort of lessons today, but I think that those were the keys. All right, well, really glad to get to take you along. It was a fun day. We caught a lot of fish. Oh, I was just going to mention, sorry I was on the phone with that big fish that we caught. I would have liked to tell you a little bit more about it, but right then, but I couldn't. So while I'm thinking of it now, that fish was on the bank. I mean, its tail had to be touching the bank. And I wound that chatterbait by about probably 3 feet from the bank, and I just saw him waking, and he grabbed it. So that was a lot of fun, but just interesting. Again, he was just basking in the sun right on that bank where it was as warm as possible, and he literally had to be touching the stones right on the bank there. But anyway, I think that's a wrap. It was great to take you on the water, and can't wait for next time. Take care, guys.